Okay, welcome back. Good morning, LA. Good to see you. We are ACI Course 13. This is Class 9. Seems like we've been gone for a really long time. So thank you for coming back. It's June 17th, 2026, where I am. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing us in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about emptiness and karma, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with our intention strong, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, 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 teach me that, show me that, help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we realize Buddhahood for the sake of every being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. All right. Anybody even remember last class? Thank goodness I have my notes. We were learning how to define things, the definitions of definitions. Do you remember? I really love that class. But it doesn't mean figuring out how to write the sentence so that it can be included in the dictionary. That wasn't what we meant. We were investigating definitions in terms of learning, getting more insights into how it is we tell things apart, how we determine that there's a pen there versus a pickle. There's some process. And then if we're trying to describe that process so that we can better understand it, that's when we come up with the words of the definition. And in order for those words to truly describe the thing we are defining, we're trying to clarify what's there, that definition needs to have 3 qualities. So not just the words need to have these 3 qualities, but these 3 qualities are present when we are experiencing something. The defining of something is to experience it. So anyway, we learned that there are these 3 qualities that must be present for something to be a definition. And those 3 qualities, the first one, if you recall, is generally speaking, it has to sound like a definition. Second one, that definition must perfectly apply to the definitive example, meaning the definition has to apply to the thing that we're trying to define. If it's too vague, it can't define the thing. It can't show it to us if it's too vague. If I say, oh, look over there at that red thing, it's like that's too vague for you to be able to know what red thing I'm pointing out to you. Oh, look over there at that red thing that's square. Oh, now you can narrow it down a little bit, but maybe there's big squares and little squares. My definition has to be more specific, doesn't it? And then third, it can't apply to any other thing. Because if our definition's too broad, we can't figure out which exactly one are you talking about. Like, what color red are you talking about? So we start to see, it's like, oh my gosh, if I'm really trying to define something, I have to be really precise in order for how I'm defining the thing to be able to show me the thing I'm defining. So, if you're thinking of talking to somebody else and you're trying to get them to recognize the same object you are looking at, you give these three qualities, these three statements, that when they hear them, they should be able to look at the same scene you're looking at, and they should arrive at the same thing you do, if those three qualities are present. And we can see how difficult that is, and how in higher school, it's like, come on, even if you do point out the same object, the two of you are not going to experience that object in the same way. But you've found some common ground in which you've narrowed down out of the bazillion things that you could be perceiving. We've clarified this one. So really, it's not so much about how we interact with others so that we're on the same page, although that's part of it. It is more importantly clues into what's going on as we experience the things of our world. So, second thing about definitions was that there are definitions that disallow things that are dissimilar to the thing we're defining. And there are definitions to disallow wrong ideas about the thing we are defining. So one definition helps us tell the thing from other things. And the other definition helps us understand wrong things we believe about the thing we're talking about. And then we learned, oh, actually, you can give a definition that includes both of those aspects. You can give a definition that disallows other things, and you can give a part of that definition can be such that it reveals wrong ideas about the thing. And we had that classical example being the definition of a direct, valid perception is a state of mind which is fresh, unerring, a fresh, unerring perception which is free of conceptualization and unmistaken. So we're defining valid perception by these four different statements about it. One statement that has four parts. So your quiz said, tell us which of those four parts are a part that shows that disallows things that are dissimilar so that we can clarify what we're talking about, and which disallows wrong ideas. So we unpacked it and we saw that the fresh and unerring part of the definition disallows dissimilar types of perceptions that are not valid. To say a valid perception must be fresh and unerring. Fresh, we learned, means it needs to be what's happening now. So it rules out any perception that's not a perception that's happening now, like memory. Then unerring means your mind's not disturbed by drugs, alcohol, bad food, right? Terrible mental affliction, which is what we've learned makes how to be affected interferes with the validity of our perception. When we are perceiving unaffected, we are perceiving validly. Now, it's a little slippery because unerring might make us think, no, it means we're perceiving the thing as it actually exists. But in lower school, we are perceiving our friend the pen as it actually exists. In higher school, no, we're not perceiving our friend the pen as it actually exists until we are perceiving it as the cascading mental seeds and nothing but. Lower school, our friend the pen is here. Not self-existently because it depends on other stuff. But right, has some nature of its own. We'll get there. Fresh and unerring. Free of conceptualization disallows the dissimilar type of valid perception, which is deductive. Free of conceptualization means free of needing to take information, put it together, and come up with something. Free of conceptualization means direct, perceiving something directly. We've learned that we can perceive something by way of deduction, and we can perceive something directly. So free of conceptualization is saying a direct, valid perception can't be one that you have to take information and come up with a new thing for it to be direct. That's deductive, valid perception. Right? Then free of conceptualization also disallows wrong ideas. The wrong idea that something we perceive through conceptualization could be direct. And it's like, wait a minute, I am directly perceiving my conceptualization. Yes, but you're not directly perceiving the thing you are conceptualizing. Right? So that one phrase, free of conceptualization, used in this context, has two functions. That's an interesting clue also. Then the unmistaken part, which seems redundant. We already said unerring, but unmistaken here disallows the wrong idea that all sense perceptions are correct. So this school says a direct perception is actually your sense powers picking up what they pick up. When our eye picks up color, shape, that's a direct perception. We are not perceiving pot yet. because pot is conceptualization experience. So this school is saying we might believe that all sense perceptions, because they are direct, are always correct. But they're not always correct. As we said, push on your eyeballs, you see two things, two colors and shapes, but there's not two of them there. So again, it just seems like, oh, those details, like what's the purpose? And the purpose isn't to be thinking every moment what's showing the dissimilar and what's showing wrong ideas, but it's to get this understanding that as we communicate with ourselves and others, these processes are going on. We're thinking in this way, whether we realize it or not. And we do so really imprecisely as human beings because we haven't ever learned to think in these layers of what's right. What are the ramifications of the words that I'm using when I'm trying to point things out to somebody else or myself? And that's what I found to be the beauty of this whole course 13, when I had the opportunity to dig into it more deeply to try to explain it to other people, is it's like, oh my gosh, it clarified my ability to consider the ramifications of what I was hearing, and more importantly, of what I'm saying to somebody else, which is much harder to consider the ramifications of your own words than to consider the ramifications of somebody else's. All right. So now we are on to class 9. Please recall that our review class will be coming up soon, and that I like to have you guys teach me the review class for all those good reasons, seed planting reasons. And so if you care to play, be sure you show up on time for class 10 next week. Or next, yeah, when is it next week? So that I can assign the questions to you. You are not obligated. But if enough of you decide you will, we'll do it that way. And I'll assign them next class. So then, Getchla started his class 9 by sharing with us that this particular topic that we are going to learn about, it's called Shen cell. This cough is coming back. It was such a pleasure to be cough-free for 2 months. Shen cell. Shen cell means other. Shen is other. Cell means here to eliminate. Sometimes it means clear, as in the clear, there's a clear space between me and the wall. And sometimes it means clear, like you can see it clearly. Here it means eliminate, which is another kind of clearing, right? And so it means exclusion. How we perceive things by way of eliminating other things. It's a concept in perception theory, perception explanation of how we arrive at something by excluding other things. And this topic of study isn't taught until the students have attended those winter debates for at least 3 years. It's like in a very advanced study in the monastic training. They don't all get it. So he explained how, you have a class of kids that all started their training at the same time, and they're moving through their program at about the same speed. And at some point, I don't know how they're chosen, but some number of that group get chosen to go to the winter debates and participate in the winter debates. And then the next year, right, this same cohort of kids is a year older, a year more trained. However, they get chosen to go to the winter debates, it drops in number. So maybe the first year for their class, 50 guys go. And then second year, 20 guys go. And third year, 5 guys go. And Geshe-la said by the fourth year of winter debate in his class, only 2 remained. And I don't know why. I don't know how they're getting weeded out or they just drop out. But Geshe-la said to get a class on Shensel, you would have had to have been one of those 2, right? That stuck with the training, stuck with what you needed to do winter debates, right? You're like establishing yourself as a keen thinker, a keen debater. So Geshe-la said to his class, we're doing really well. We're learning that whole curriculum in 6 weeks of our summertime. We're going really fast, too fast, really. But karmically speaking, the fact that we're still here in class 9 is extraordinary. And karmically speaking, any number of things could have happened that we would have had to have dropped out or lost interest or gone nuts or whatever. And so he said to his class, so I'm saying to this class, pat yourself on the back. It's your extraordinary goodness that brought you to this class on exclusions. And, we've had other classes that are extraordinary, probably more extraordinary. But because this subject matter is so important, he wanted to point out your goodness. And he said, you don't realize how close you are to seeing emptiness directly, right? We keep hearing him say that. And then he says, in my whole life, 50 years since I saw it, I don't know anybody else who's seen it. I don't know what to make of that teaching yet. I don't believe it. But there's a reason he keeps saying it. And then in the same class, he says, and you are so close. Like the arrow touching the target, right? It just hasn't got through the other side yet. But I see what he's saying. I see why he's saying it. So I'm saying it too. All of us are so close. And part of that is to believe it. So here's evidence. You are here in a class on Shensel. Yay. So then he said, the reading for class 9 is hard. All of them have been hard, haven't they? Yeah. So he said, in class 9 reading, find the part that says stating our position. Go there first. Read that carefully. Then go to the formal logic section. It's difficult to follow. And then after that, you'll find an essay that describes about the classes on debate in the monastery. And it explains the sequence through which the monks are trained. And Geshe-la said that he and Rinpoche sat down to write that. Like they looked at the whole picture to see how those 5 books were taught in the monastery. And Geshe-la said, as far as he knows, that was the first time that that overview had ever been written down. And so it really is a helpful reading to find. And I think he pointed it out because he probably recognized that most of us were looking at the reading and abandoned it partway through. And he was afraid we would miss this important piece at the back of class 9. So I'm pointing it out to find it and read it. This explanation. All right, finally, we've gotten to our topic at hand. Shen Sel, the concept of elimination in perception. So this comes from Buddhist logic school level. Many of these details are not accepted by highest middle way. So did Buddha teach Shen Sel? If it's really wrong ideas? Is it taught by Buddha? What do you think? Anybody care to commit themselves? Yes, yes, it was taught by Buddha. But it's wrong information. So Buddha can't be a person of pramana, a person of valid perception, then can he? You say, no, I didn't say that. So Buddha is not a person who can't lie? No, I didn't say that. So he is a person who can't lie. Yes, that's what it is to be Buddha. You can't say anything wrong because you can't hear anything wrong. And you would hear yourself saying something wrong. So it's not just that a Buddha won't say anything wrong, it's that they can't. So everything a Buddha says is true. Yes. All right, so take Shen Sel. Buddha didn't teach it then because it's not right according to highest way. And Buddha's coming from highest way. Buddha is highest way. So this is an example of what's called a circular argument. Corti corsum, you're supposed to say. It means you're just going in circles. And to get out of going in circles, you change the subject, apparently. Buddha did teach it. We've learned the punchline. An omniscient mind knows the level of the beings to whom they are communicating and teaches a level of information that allows their mind to understand something new at the level they can grasp to prepare them to then teach them something new at a new level to help them come up gradually if that's what they're ready for. And because that being is teaching them exactly what they are ready for, she is teaching what is true at the time for the audience. And our minds go, come on, but that's not really true. But the reason our minds say that is because we believe that there is a truth, right? That's out there on its own, all by itself, and we're trying to get at it. There is no self-existent truth. Not even highest middle way truth is self-existent truth. Is it not truth at all? No, I didn't say that. Right? It is an explanation that helps us get to truth. What is the truth of everything? Not self-existent, emptiness, and ripening results of somebody's past behavior. It's so hard for our linear minds to grasp that and go, oh, yeah, duh. Right? It's difficult. All right. So Buddha did teach it. He did teach things that were technically incorrect, but which were useful to the audience at hand, knowing that they would bring them up. So it is important to study Shensao, this topic of exclusions, even though it's coming from a lower school. Because it's coming from a lower school, it will help us recognize how maybe we are actually coming from an even lower school and help us actually come up to being able to relate to our world from the higher school that we might think we are doing. When I don't know about you, but I am not most of the time. Like in my head, but not in my actual experience. All right. So the topic of Shensel particularly addresses three common misperceptions that we have about emptiness. As we study and work with this idea of Shensel, those wrong ideas get clarified as incorrect, as limiting. And we're able to then ourselves go higher to understand more precisely how the understanding of exclusions helps us. So when we can help ourselves eliminate wrong ideas, we are better able to help others eliminate their wrong ideas. So that itself is a clue. Like until we may go to somebody else and say, you know, you're behaving so badly. Your karma is going to come back to bite you. You're not going to like that. You should change. And if somebody comes to me and says that, you know, at least before I'd studied, I'd have thought, you know, yeah, thanks for sharing, right? And really not listened. But if I've already talked to myself through that and recognized what I really mean by that and how it helps me change my behavior, and then I see somebody behaving badly, rather than just going to them and saying, you know, me, I might rather go to them and say, you know, I used to have this habit of doing da da da. And then I thought through it in this way. And then I recognized how it was hurting me. And then I changed my behavior. And we're not saying to them, you have to change. We're saying, look, you know, this is what happened to me. And and if the person's paying attention and that they care, they might go home and go, wow, gee, you know, maybe I'm in the same boat. and they have the tools. Or maybe they come back to you and say, how'd you work that all out? And you help them have the tools that they come to their own conclusion about needing to change. Do you see the difference here in this saying? Understand how we eliminate our own ideas, then you can go to somebody else and eliminate their ideas. You don't eliminate their ideas, you inspire them to eliminate their own wrong ideas. It's important piece. So there's a classical example of how it is that exclusions help us eliminate our wrong ideas. Now, when we do these exclusions, we are not talking about revealing emptiness. We are talking about how we experience things. So exclusion is to eliminate what is other. That's what Shensel means, to eliminate what is other. The classical example, all that is not sound. I'll say it again. The classical example of eliminating what is other in perception theory is, excuse me, consider all which is not sound. So if I say to you, what do I mean by all which is not sound? We have to think sound, right? I know what sound is. And all that is not sound are all those things that I can see, smell, taste, touch, think about, but that I don't get through those audibles. Excuse me. I'm going to torture you. So if we are holding on to the category of all which is not sound, do you have it in your mind? And now I say, consider all which is not that. What happens in your mind? What's there? It has to be sound, right? Because we just eliminated all that's not sound. So all that's left is sound. Lower school says that when we think sound, this is the process we had to have gone through. Eliminated all that is not sound to reveal sound. Meaning they believe that we arrive at sound by eliminating all that it's not it. There's so many implications in there that in my own thinking apply to lower school and apply to higher school. Like sound is always there, even if we're not hearing it, because we just haven't eliminated all the stuff that's not it, so we're not experiencing it. But that means when we're hearing and we're not seeing, if you're not doing it both at the same time, which you can't, all the things that we could see are there, but we're not experiencing them until we eliminate everything that's not them. It's so complicated. It's like, come on, I'm just walking down the street. I'm seeing a tree. I'm seeing a, right? And even lower school that believes the tree is there is saying, no, actually, the way you perceive that tree is by eliminating everything else. And when we think about it, if the tree is just colors and shapes, the sky around it is colors and shapes, the neighbor's house that's behind it is just colors and shapes. In order to come up with tree out of all those colors and shapes, my mind does have to wipe away all this other stuff to come up with, oh, those colors and shapes are delineated as a tree versus the building versus the sky, right? Like you take those squiggles and then you find how this squiggle outlines a tree and this squiggle outlines a building and this squiggle, right? We're apparently doing that constantly. Lower school says when we use the term conceptualization, this is what we mean. The conceptualizing is this process of seeing all these colors and shapes, and the process of the mind eliminating this from that one and this from that one to come up with what we're seeing. That's conceptualizing. That's how we arrive at the tree and the neighbor's house and the sky. That's how we arrive at our friend the pen. So there are three versions of this concept of exclusions. Dunronki Shenso, Loi Shenso, and Megaki Shenso. Dunrong Ki Shenso. Dun means objectification. Rang means a specific instance. So objectification, specific instance, meaning making an object by eliminating what it's not, is what Dunrong Ki Shenso means. Coming up with a specific object, a pen, a tree, a pickle, by eliminating all that it's not. So this Dunronki Shenso is an exclusion, which is the objectification of a specific instance of a thing. Objectification means can't get a word. The process through which we recognize then as an object as being there. Geshe said the act of creating the object, which that word like affects my mind a little bit. It's like creating means I take the lump of clay and I create it into a cup. But in a way, if you've got all these colors and shapes out there and you're eliminating everything it's not, I have created the tree. And it's like, no, I didn't. Some other stuff created the tree. I just recognized the tree. but he used the word created, and I think it was for seed planting purposes of taking us higher. The creating is coming up with the perception. Oh, that's a tree. Even lower school says the tree isn't making us do that. Our mind is doing that. And it does it through this process of eliminating all that it's not to arrive at the object. The object, not the idea of the object, the actual object. So here's our friend, the pen. This specific pen is arrived at by mentally eliminating all that's not a pen. And that's different than saying, I perceive the pen by just looking at the object and seeing the object. It's a different experience to say, where's my pen? Oh, there it is, bing. Versus pen. Pen shows up by eliminating all that it's not. Oh, I see a pen there. Which do we feel like we're experiencing all the time? Direct pen. Like the difference when I drew on the board, I drew the heart and I drew the squiggles around the heart, and what was left was the heart. That's what we're talking about here. Lower school says, no, you don't experience directly the pen. You reach the pen directly by eliminating all the stuff it's not. And maybe I hadn't tried this before, but maybe on this video, if you were to just look at this image that we're calling me holding the pen, and to just see the different colors and shapes, like remove any specifics from it, like blur your eyes all out, in order to come up with a specific, your mind really does have to say, okay, let's negate this thing and negate this information and negate that information, and what's left is this thing, right, that we call pen. If we never distinguished differences between all this stuff, we wouldn't have pen, would we? We wouldn't have a pen. We wouldn't have this pen. So lower school says that the way you recognize the emptiness of this pen is the fact that it is void of being in the category of all that it is not. The emptiness of this pen is that you will not find it in that category of all that it's not. That reveals its emptiness. Is it true that in the category of all that is not pen, we will never find this pen? Yes, that's true. Does that help us to figure out why to be kind to the angry yelling boss that you want to be mean to? Because the angry yelling boss is not found in the category of things that's not angry yelling bosses. Doesn't help us much, right? It's not so useful to understand that kind of emptiness. It is true, but it's not going to help us end our suffering. To say the pen is the opposite, is devoid of all that it isn't so useful, but it is simple. And it is a way to understand the concept of emptiness, a concept of emptiness in a little more specific way. So in the Dunrung, we want to be sure that we're talking about exploring how we use exclusion of all that's not it to arrive at a specific object, a specific pen, a pen, not pen, not the idealization pen. That's different. So we're talking about working things and how exclusions in this school are arrived at by recognizing and eliminating all that that working thing is not, which leaves the specific instance of that thing. This is called a negative. It's called the reverse of all that it is not, to arrive at the object. The object is a presence, but we arrive at it through a negation, negating all that it's not. Recall that logic school is amongst the functionalist schools. Functionalist schools say anything that performs a function has some nature of its own, not self-existent because those objects depend on all kinds of other things. But that object does have some nature of its own because this one writes, and this one holds water, and this one holds cough medicine. Right? Different things do different things. So they have to have something unique to them that makes it a writing instrument. When lower school level mind hears higher school say, those things that function, they're just mental images cascading out of your mind. Our like gut reaction is, oh, well, then they're not real. Right? Our gut reaction to mental images is that it's just some picture. And it doesn't have reality, tangible reality. And Buddha knows that that's our ignorant reaction. Or because of ignorance, that's our reaction to mental images. And so he's helping us walk our way up to recognizing that, in fact, to say things are mental images is what makes them real, is what makes them function. And he knows that we can't necessarily get that yet. So that's why he's helping us work out these details that seems just like silly semantics. So when we understand my mind's excluding things to come up with this pen, even lower school is going to understand that the specific pen I come up with is unique to me, and the specific pen that you come up with is unique to you. But there's still a pen out here. Yeah. And then they say, I get that unique to me thing. But there are things that happen in our world, functioning things that do their function that everybody experiences the same way, like the sun rising. Come on, Buddha. The sun rises for 4 billion people, and then a little while later, it rises for 4 different billion people. And they all experience the sunrise the same way. But it's like, no, they don't, do they? Is the sun rising for everybody? Like high school says only those who have the seeds ripening for it to rise. Maybe you're in prison. Maybe you're living in an enclosed cave. Maybe you're some worm at the bottom of the ocean. Maybe you're dead and the sun doesn't rise for you. But my mind hears that and it still goes, yeah, but the sun's still rising because I believe that that happens independent of my mind. And then to say, no, no, you make the sun rise every day for 8 billion people. It's like, no, I don't. Or if I do, wow, like, what else do I do? That's a scary answer. Huh. Okay, so Buddha taught that the only thing that any working thing has as its own nature is the nature of being the opposite of all that it is not. So, this is Buddha teaching what becomes lower school, logic school, is yes, all those working things have their own nature. But what that own nature is the nature of being the opposite of all that it is not. To get us starting to think about this idea of elimination, which is going to lead us to be able to grasp the meaning of emptiness in highest school. It helps us get accustomed to experiencing things from this different perspective. So there's a classical example. I'll finish this and then we'll take our break. There's a classical example of Dunrong-Ki Shensel, the objectification of an object by way of exclusion. That classical example is Bumpa Mayimpa Le Lokpa. Mayimpa Le Lokpa means the opposite of what it is not. So the classical example of Dunrong-Ki Shensel is a water pitcher considered as the reverse of all that it is not. So think of every existing thing that's not water pitcher. Now eliminate all that stuff that's not water pitcher, and what have you got? A water pitcher. Yay. And in this school, that's how we perceive everything. And to them, it reveals the water pitcher's true nature. The fact that it's not anything other than water pitcher. Come on, duh, says lower school. All right, let's take our break. Oh, we're back. Ooh. So the second type of exclusion is Loi Shense. Loi means mind, mind exclusion, a mental exclusion. So in this school, lower school, when we conceptualize something, we are mentally making an image out of mentally eliminating all that it's not. And before we were talking about that process through which we end up with a pen, the Dunrong Kishen So. Now we're talking about making a conception of pen, not a pen, but pen. So in this school, a pen is ultimate reality because it functions, it does something. Pen is an idealization of that object. The idealization doesn't do anything. It's the specific instance of the ideal that functions. And that's reality in lower school. So, this discussion about the mental image exclusion plant seeds for us to get close to the concept of Dunchi, which helps us get closer to the root of dependent origination, which helps us get closer to that experience of seeing the seeds ripen and landing on the information, creating the specific object by way of this idealization. Right? Those seeds ripen, pot on stove, and boom, there is one. Seeds ripen, green and white pen, and there is one. If we didn't have the idea of pen, could this ever become a pen for us? No, because if pen is meaningless, a pen is just as meaningless. So this topic, uh, conceptualizing, meaning eliminating stuff mentally to come up with a mental image, meaning coming is how we come to know that we know pen. We have to eliminate all that is not pen to arrive at pen. And then to arrive at a pen, we eliminate all the stuff that's not a pen to come up with this pen. Creating the pen is the process happening Dunrung. Objectification. The idealization happening is Loi Shense. So Geshe-la said, maybe Buddha was thinking, let's first learn Loi Shense and explore that for a while, and then we'll move their minds up to Dunchi. We kind of did it backwards. We learned about Dunchis, and now we're learning about Loi Shense. So Loy Chancel is defined as the image which appears to conceptualization, which is created by negating all that a thing is not. The image which appears to conceptualization, which is created by eliminating or negating all that a thing is not. But here, a mental image of the opposite of all the thing is not. Before we were coming up with a pen, now we're coming up with the idea pen, a mental image. As if the pen was not a mental image. In lower school, it's not only a mental image. It's a Dunranki Shetso image. All right. So Geshe-la said, we're talking about ideas of things, the mental image of an idea. So consider the horns on the head of a rabbit. We have a mental image of the opposite of all that is not horns on the head of a rabbit. To think horns on the head of a rabbit, we have to eliminate all that's not horns on the head of a rabbit. But wait a minute, there's no such thing as horns on the head of a rabbit. So how can I have a mental image of eliminating all that's not it for something that there's no such thing? But come on, isn't there some kind of picture in our minds of a rabbit with horns? And it doesn't apply to a real rabbit in our world because they don't have horns, they have ears. But we have an idea of one. And even to get a mental picture of a little rabbit with horns, we have to have gone through this process of eliminating anything that's not a rabbit, anything that's not a rabbit with horns, to have in our minds, oh, if there were such a thing as a rabbit with horns, I would recognize it through this idea. Now, to me, those ideas are not mental pictures, but to maybe you, they are. Right? We have some kind of mental picture of this non-existing thing. And to reach that, we eliminated all of our mental pictures of things that wouldn't fit that anyway. And in order to come to the mental picture of even a non-existing thing, horns on the head of a rabbit, we had to go through this process of elimination. Geshe-la shifted to the two-headed purple elephant in our room right now. We have to have the idea of what a two-headed purple elephant would look like in order to assess our room to see if there is one in there. And in order to have the idea of two-headed purple elephant with or without an actual one there, we have to eliminate all blue canaries, all gray elephants, all blue skies, right? We have to eliminate everything else to even have the idea two-headed purple elephant. So now think car. Think your car. In order to think your car, there has to be the idea car. And the idea car can only be there if we've eliminated trucks, motorcycles, worms, bicycles, right? Everything else in the universe to no car, so that then we can eliminate everything to come up with my car. The same process is happening. When it's happening as Lorentz cell exclusion, that's how we come up with the idealization. When it's happening, and what we come up with is an objectification, an actual object, then our elimination has been this dunran. It seems like they're both happening. It's not like one or the other, right? But because we're in lower school, we're making this distinction between eliminating all other objectified objects for coming up with a pen and eliminating all other ideas of things to come up with the idea pen that we also have to have in order for the a pen to ever be revealed. To be able to find the category all that's not pen, we have to know pen, don't we? Okay, so shortened version is the mental image of the opposite of all a thing is not. Same as the Dunrong, but now we're talking about images, right? Ideas, like the identities, like the essence of things. So this Leuchten cell can be a mental image arrived at by elimination of things that are imaginary, like the horns on the head of a rabbit or the two-headed purple elephant, or same process comes up with a mental image of a thing that can have an objectification in our existence, like pen, car, yelling boss, me and my emotions, right? Things that do exist. The process Leuchten cell can come up with imagined things, and it can come up with the idealization of things that can be real in our world, things that can function. But in this school, logic school, they say an imaginary thing cannot function. So we cannot have a Dunrung Gishen cell, even though we can have a Leuchten cell of an imaginary thing, because that imaginary thing can't function. It can't have a tangible example of it. It seems like they're using reverse logic because the thing doesn't exist in my world, but because I can think of it, thinking of it is imaginary because there's no such thing in my real world. High school would say the opposite. You think of it as an imagined thing, and so it can't manifest in your world. If we didn't think of it as an imagined thing, we'd be thinking of it as a real thing, and then it would be in our outer world. But our minds say, no, no, that's not reality, right? You can't make unicorns exist just by believing in them, can you? It's like we tried as little kids. Yeah, technically we should be able to, actually. It's our limitation in belief that keeps us from doing so. So lower school says, I'm reading from my notes, anything which has no true nature of its own has an exclusion. Like anything which is not self-existent is arrived at by eliminating all that it is not. Is there anything that is self existent in any Buddhist school? No. So everything is arrived at by excluding that which it is not. Whether those things exist or don't exist, they're still arrived at by in this same way. But wait a minute. Are things that don't exist not self-existent? Tricky, isn't it? Don't we have to have an existing thing that we think self-exists to show ourselves that it doesn't self-exist, so that's its emptiness? You can't have emptiness without a thing that's empty. But you also don't first have a self-existent thing that then we recognize doesn't have that self-existence, and so suddenly it has emptiness. It always had emptiness. It never had self-existence, but it had to be a thing, because you can't have a no self nature of a non-existing thing. It has no nature at all. It's not there to be self-existent or not self-existent. So do we experience non-existing things as self-existent? In which case we can't eliminate all which is not them to come up with them. Or is our idea of a non-existent thing an existing thing that we arrive at by eliminating all that's not it? Right? I mean, there's no level at which we can't consider this, and it pops my brain circuits. And it's not about coming to the right conclusion. It's about letting us get to this, like, wow, I can't figure it out. Because if things exist in them, from them, the way we believe, we should be able to figure it out and come to a clear conclusion. And because we can't, we get like, oh, because it's revealing the fact that they don't exist the way we think. Right? So in this Buddhist logic, it sounds like you should be able to prove X, Y, Z. And then we find it's like so much slipperier than that. It's like, right, that's the point. That's the point. Get comfortable in that uncertainty. Winston used to say that all the time. There was a student teacher, Winston McCulloch, and that was his favorite phrase: get comfortable with uncertainty. All right, I got to get on here. All right, so even imaginary things exist as imaginary things, and they are arrived at through the mental image of eliminating all the mental images that are not it. Okay, wait. So Getchell has shared, in order to reach emptiness directly, we must be able to imagine what a self-existent thing would be like so that we can recognize its absence. Because the absence of self-existence is what emptiness is. And we will do that through mental images, through this Loy Shen self, because there is no self-existence in the objective world. that we can use to explore, to reach emptiness directly from the Dunrong Kishensa. It has to happen mentally because our self-existent things are imaginary things, right? So technically, of the two, the objectification of things versus the arriving at the mental image of an imaginary thing, the arriving at the mental image of an imaginary thing is the more important piece, the more useful piece to explore. It's more fun to do the pen, but more important to do the mental image stuff. All right, there's a third kind of Shen cell, and oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of time. Megak ki Shen cell. Me means not, and gak means absence. The exclusion of megak, of not absence. It sounds like megak means not absent, but it doesn't mean that. It means an absence that's revealed by a simple negation. Simple simple not. An exclusion, which is a negative thing involving the absence of a thing. So our Dunrong Kishinsal was creating the thing, or like recognizing it's there by eliminating all that it's not, establishing what the thing is. Megak Kishinsal is establishing what a thing is not by eliminating all that is it is not. Wait. Megak Kishinsal is establishing what a thing is not by eliminating all that it is not, meaning it is establishing a simple absence. So for Megak Kishinsal process, an object is already there. By way of Dunrong Kishinsal, eliminating all that it's not comes up with our friend the pen. Megak Kishinsal is eliminating the pen. Somehow recognizing that something that we thought was there is not there, not actually there. So it's through Megak Kishinsal, this elimination that reveals a simple absence, is how we reach emptiness. The simple absence of a self-existent thing. We have to know pen to experience a pen, and then we have to know what we mean by self-existent pen to recognize that there's no self-existent pen, even as the object pen is there. That's this Megak Kishinsal. It would apply as well to any person in our world who could make us upset. So the Megak Kishinsal is revealed to us when we say, here's our friend the pen, but there is here also the absence of a pen that can function without me having the karma to experience it functioning. Or a person in my world that can upset me, who is independent of me having the seeds ripening to get upset with them right now. There's something there, and we are recognizing the absence of something about it that we believe is there that's not. Geshe-la said, any negative thing that happens That happens independently of our karmic projections of it, would be a self-existent thing. Any negative thing that happens, that happens independent of being my karmic seeds ripening, would be a self-existent thing. And there is no such thing. That's its absence. We can't reveal its absence without recognizing what we think is there. This is what we call megok. It implies then that we have to take responsibility for everything that happens to us, which is too big a load for a lot of people. And Buddha knew that, so he didn't teach at that level. But he teaches all these clues to where we can come to that conclusion ourselves and go, oh my gosh, I really am the creator of my world. I can't see myself do it in the moment yet. Oh, I want an orange. Here's an orange. But it could be someday. Nothing is anything other than ripening results of my own past behavior. Right? That will be the conclusion when we work our way through all of this. Which is why morality matters. All right, so there's a classical example of Megak Kishansel. Bumpa Maempe Tongwa, our friend the water pitcher. The classical example is the condition of a water pitcher being devoid of anything that belongs to the group of things it is not. Classical example of an exclusion of sheer that reveals sheer absence is the condition of a water pitcher being devoid of anything that belongs to the group of things that it is not. Consider all things that are not water pitcher. On the one hand, and consider a water pitcher on the other hand. It is fact that our water pitcher is devoid of any of the characteristics of the things that are in the category of all that is not a water pitcher. Is that correct? The water pitcher not being a part of all that's not water pitcher is the water pitcher's mere absence. Does knowing that make the water pitcher disappear? No. Knowing that reveals the water pitcher even better to us. Like, come on, I knew that. I know water pitchers are not part of all that it's not. Yeah, but you're not aware that in order to see water pitcher, you had to consider it in that way. It's like, well, that must happen really fast and really subtly because all I'm aware of is the water pitcher. And Buddha goes, right, honey, you've got work to do. Okay. Because let's state it another way. When we go looking for a water pitcher that can be amongst a group of things that are not water pitchers, we will not be able to find one. And this is an absence of that water pitcher, and that is its emptiness in this lower school. That is not the direct perception of emptiness, but it's a process we can explore that will help us reach the direct perception of emptiness. Okay. That's our philosophy levels part of class. We have logic part of class. We've been learning in logic that there's a specific sequence we go through in establishing this topic of consideration we want to talk about, what we want to prove about that topic, and our reason for doing so, and giving an example, and then this process of assessing whether our reason actually proves what we're saying about our topic. And in that process, learning to use that process, we that's the skill through which we actually will be able to use the philosophy, right, in deeper ways. It's like this all goes together. And in this process of our three statements and checking our reasons for correctness, there are different elements, some direct and some implied, that when we learn to recognize that we are thinking like this, it will help us actually apply our thinking like that more accurately in our day-to-day life. So there are these 14 elements within our logical statement that the better we understand those 14, the better we can use our logical statements to change our own understandings. And then the better we can use them to help other people. So we'll use our syllogism example that we've been working on since the beginning. We're talking to somebody who believes that Om is an unchanging sound that is the foundation of our world. And we know we can't say, look, buddy, Om's a sound, it's got to be changing. Because, right, they'll reject our statement. So we get on common ground. We say, consider sound. It's a changing thing. Why do I say that? Because it's made. And I give an example. It is like, for instance, a water pitcher. So that person's human, I'm human. We know water pitchers. We know water pitchers are made things. We know because they're made, they're changing. We know they're changing because they're made. We know they're functioning. We know all this stuff about water pitchers, and we agree, right? Presumably, we agree, which is why we give an example that grounds our argument so the other person will listen to us. So then we go through these different elements of meaning in our syllogism, and that's where these 14 different elements come up. So I'm not going to do the Tibetan because of time. But in our syllogism, the first element number one is the subject. Like, what's the subject matter that we've set forth for our logical statement? The subject is sound. We've said, consider sound. That's establishing our subject. Element number two is, what is our assertion about our topic at hand, our subject? Our assertion is sound is a changing thing. It's our statement number two, is our assertion. Now, within the assertion is this element number three, which is the quality about our subject that we're wanting to prove. So it's restating our assertion. The quality to be proven is being a changing thing. We're wanting to establish to our other friend a tool for them to look at their belief that a sound is an unchanging thing without challenging their belief. So our third element is in our assertion, we are pointing out the quality that we want to prove about our subject is being a changing thing. It's the quality we're trying to prove. Element number 4, there's an explicit form of that quality to be proven. And element number 5, there's an implicit form of the quality to be proven. Element 4, the explicit form of the quality to prove is that I'm stating about sound that it is, in fact, a changing thing. It's what I've directly stated in the words of my assertion. But then there are implications revealed by those words. Our words are sound is a changing thing. And what that implies is, well, changing moment by moment. It implies it's a working thing. It implies it's a caused thing. That implies it's a result of something. That implies it produces something, right? Everything that we know about what it means to be changing is implied in our statement. It is a changing thing, right? That's where the usefulness comes for our own minds in playing with these syllogisms. When we have our assertion, all these implications come into play. And when those are clear in our mind and valid to the topic that we're talking about, that's when our logic gets more and more clear, more and more accurate. Sixth element is the position we are denying by our assertion. So by saying, consider sound, it's a changing thing, we are denying that sound is an unchanging thing without saying it. To say sound is a changing thing and then to be able to prove that that's true reveals then that sound cannot be unchanging. That's the sixth element. Seventh element is the quality we are denying, which is being an unchanging thing. So the position we're denying is this idea, and then the quality that we are denying is that the position we are denying applies to the thing sound. It's a quality of sound. Being an unchanging thing that we are denying that that's possible. Element number 8 is that in order to come to these conclusions, our mind checks the group of similar cases. So what is the group of similar cases that we use to confirm or deny our reasoning for this quality to be proven? So we're looking still at our assertion, sound is a changing thing. The group of similar cases is all changing things. So our whole argument actually pivots around the accuracy of our statement about sound being a changing thing is whether or not our reason for sound being a changing thing, whether or not our reason covers all changing things. Because if it doesn't, if our reason somehow excludes some minor, some possible part of the category all changing things, then it would mean that our reason does not prove what we say about sound being a changing thing, because there are some exceptions to the reason. This reason does fit, but in order to know whether it fits, we compare the reason to the all similar cases in our assertion. Then number 9, element 9, is what is the group of dissimilar things? In this syllogism, the group of dissimilar things is all unchanging things. Right? We're saying sound is a changing thing. We have to check about all changing things when we're looking at our reason. And then we have to check about all unchanging things. Because if our reason is true about both all changing things and all unchanging things, then our reason can't prove what we're saying about sound. For example, consider sounds. They are changing things because they exist. Is it true that sounds exist? Yes. If they exist, does that necessarily mean they are changing things? If we compare things that exist to the category of all similar cases, changing things, it is true. But if we say it is true that they exist, our reason, to the category of dissimilar cases, meaning all unchanging things, is that still true that they exist? Yes. So our reason is too big to actually prove our assertion that sound is a changing thing, because our reason applies to both similar cases and dissimilar cases. Okay? The reason, because it's made, applies to any changing thing, does it not? But does because it's made apply to all unchanging things? No, because unchanging things are not made things. So our reason applies to too big a category. It applies to similar cases and dissimilar cases, which means it can't prove what we're saying about the similar cases. That's the importance of our element 8 and 9. So because sounds exist is not a good reason for our assertion that sound is a changing thing, because sound could exist as an unchanging thing. It doesn't, but our syllogism would be saying that. Element number 10. Is the reason? The element is our reason. So element 10 is, it's a made thing, is our reason for why we're saying sound is a changing thing. What makes that a reason? Because we said because. Anything we say after because is a reason for something. Is it a good reason? We don't know yet. So our element number 11 is to check that first relationship. What's the first relationship? Is there a relationship between what we said in our reason and the subject we're talking about? Is there a relationship between sounds and being made? We can say yes. If we had said about sound, consider sound, it's a changing thing because it's something I can see, we would say, something I can see, the reason I can't see sounds. There's no relationship there. Throw the whole thing out. That's not a good reason. Find another reason. Consider sound, it's changing because it exists. Wait, it is true that it exists. So then we have to go to the second level. Element number 12 is the positive necessity. Element 13 is going to be the negative necessity. So remember, the orders are important. In the positive necessity, that means that if what we say in our reason were true, not whether it is in real life or not, but if it were true, what would that necessarily say about the assertion? If our statement 3 is true, is it necessarily the case that our statement number 2 would have to be true as well? So let's look. If anything is a made thing, if statement 3 is true, is it necessarily the case that that same thing has to be a changing thing? If it's made, is it necessarily changing? It had to go from not made to made. So even if we think once it's made, there it is, done, no more changing, it had to change to get made. And then, of course, if it does anything, it's changing by way of doing something, and it's changing something else by way of doing something. Right? So if 3, then 2. If it's true, if it holds, then we go to the 13th element, the negative necessity. And the negative necessity, we go to the assertion statement, number 2, and we negate it. Just hypothetically, if we negate a changing thing, we are now talking about an unchanging thing. And if we have an unchanging thing, would that necessarily negate our reason that we had given about sound? So, not saying in real life, hypothetically, if we're talking about unchanging things, does that necessarily mean that we cannot be talking about things which are made? Yes, it holds, doesn't it? Because unchanging things are not made things. They're not produced. They're not changing moment by moment. That's what we know about unchanging things. That's why we've studied all this stuff. That's why we learned that category of all existing things, so that we would have the tools to investigate all of this. Like everything we've learned in ACI comes into play as we are learning this more detailed way of recognizing how we think through our decision making. It ends up being really helpful, actually. So then the 14th element is the example we give. The example in our syllogism is, it's like, for example, a water pitcher because our buddy that we're talking about and I both relate to water pitchers the same way, being humans, right, in our world. We know water pitchers are made out of clay by somebody. We know they hold water. We know they do stuff. We know being a changed thing is being a made thing. We know that about water pitchers. And now we're pointing it out to the other person about sounds. And then we leave it up to them to decide, oh, wow, sound. Ohm's a sound. I believe Ohm is an unchanging thing that somehow functions in the world. Oh, maybe there's something I'm misunderstanding. Let's investigate. Right. And that was the whole idea, was to help open their mind, not to say, you're believing wrong. Okay. I have 10 more minutes. I think I'm going to do it. And those who have to go, feel free to go, but please hear the other 10 minutes off the audio. Um, okay. So we've seen the importance of the ramifications of our assertion. And we've seen the importance of our reason being a correct reason. And then we've been learning about reasons in terms of how to think up reasons that can be correct. And we had good reasons that were by way of cause effect. And we had good reasons that we came up with by way of the nature of things. And we learned about good reasons that reveal absence of things that we could see or not see. And then now we have another kind of or category of reasons, which is reasons that are useful for ourselves versus reasons that are useful for somebody else. And we can use a reasoning using specific reasons that affect our own mind, our own heart in a deep and significant way. But if we take that same reasoning and reasons to somebody else, they just think we're nuts, or they feel offended, or they just can't get it. And then they reject it. And that's not helpful. So we may have a really precise syllogism like this one about sound, and we lay it on somebody who's not interested. There's nothing in those words of that syllogism that can, from their side, influence that other person to come to some new aha. So the reasoning we use for ourselves and the reasoning we use for others is different, can be different. It can't be the same, but it's a different logical process. And then in thinking about that relationship between the two, the kind of reasoning we might use with someone that we see is behaving in ways that is causing themselves more trouble might be to sit down with them and say, I used to have kind of similar trouble, and describe it to them. And then your reasoning with them would be, and then I recognize this pattern, and I understood how my own behavior was influencing my own mind. And I came to clarify for myself how my, right, I'm just going to use our vocabulary, mental seeds, you would use different, help me understand myself better. And it helped me decide I wanted to change these habits that I had. And right, just use our own reasoning on our own selves as an example to how we changed in our reasoning that we're using to help the other. Do you see? We're not laying out the syllogism. We're revealing to them the effect of that clear thinking that we use to change our own process. And it's a way of using logic to help another person. Do you see? Different than sit down, let's do a debate, right? My neighbor doesn't want a debate. My neighbor doesn't want me to tell her what I think she should do. But my neighbor is probably very happy to listen to me describe my own mistakes and my own changes. And maybe it starts her thinking. Right? So it's like that's the idea underneath here. When they do come back and like, teach me how to think, that's when we lay out these details. And even still, we might start with a logic that's showing a lesser school understanding versus jumping straight to, everything you experience is a result of your own past deeds. I mean, you just don't use that for someone who's not looking for how they themselves can change things. Right? It wouldn't be helpful for someone who's just been robbed or their house burned down for us to say, it only happened to you because you burned somebody else's house down in some past life. It's like, yeah, thank you very much. I feel better. We don't say that. Okay. All right. So there are these two more good reasons. Correct reasons. Tayandak. Where is it? Correct reasons that we use for ourselves. There it is. Rangdung Gab Ki Tayandak. Correct reasons that we use on ourselves. Rangdun. And correct reasons that we use for others. Shandung. And they'll probably be different, is the moral to the story. All right. So lastly, Geshe-la shared that the virtue of these classes, ACI 13, this one in particular, is extraordinary. To have the karma to be interested in how to prove and disprove things, about how to explore existence and non-existence of things in order to better understand emptiness and karma is beyond amazing. To stick with a class like this far is beyond amazing. So he says, congratulate yourself, but please make the determination to continue to work with these ideas. He says the information in course 13 is flirtation with the direct perception of emptiness. And we just heard him say that what he was studying with Ken Rinpoche in those first few months was Chi Chedak. He was studying logic. He was being taught perception theory and how to think, because that's what the new kids to the monastery learned. And he was the new kid to the monastery. And for him, he had the seeds for that to trigger, what must have been extraordinary past life efforts. And boom, he just got on that conveyor belt to those realizations. There's no reason to think that your study of this class can't trigger the same thing for you. All of it designed to bring all of us to the direct perception of emptiness. And we're so close. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close. To continue to help you, guide you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone we love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
Thank you, teacher. Sorry,
Thank
today let's
you.
finish.
Teacher.
So that's why
Thank you,
I'm
teacher.
on my
Yes,
camera.
I'm stopping recording. All right. One more class and then you'll teach me.